All right, welcome to the Linux A-Team, courtesy of cupoflinux.com. We've got an interesting panel and an interesting discussion tonight on gaming. Let's go ahead and pass the microphone to your host with the most toaster today.
Thank you, Spatry's Cup of Shiznits. Oh, boy. We have Edge226. We have JV, Matthew Moore. We have somebody named Spatry, never heard of him, and of course myself. Is this some news and nonsense, or are we doing gaming?
I don't know. What are we doing? Well, hey, it was your idea, and we also invited IG, and hopefully he'll pop in at some point. We don't even know what happened with him. Yeah, that's odd, because usually he pops in on time, but yeah, it is what it is. So, yeah. So we've got our resident genius, Edge226, with us. And looks like JV dropped out, and he actually coordinates gaming night here at Cup of Linux. Then, just for fun, I figured we would also invite Matthew Moore in to share a few words. So, yeah, take it away, Toss.
Cool. Okay, well, I'd asked Spatry to host this discussion for tonight on the future of Linux gaming. I believe, as a dual booter between Windows and various versions of Linux, that it seems that lately, from what I've been seeing, that the future of Linux belongs in gaming. Now, when I say the future of Linux, I'm talking about consumer Linux, not necessarily government servers or stuff like that, but the mom and pop person who would buy a Linux desktop for themselves and for their family might consider buying one in the future if it was capable of playing higher quality types of games or more choices when it comes to Linux games. Last month, I downloaded a game, open source game called Stunt Rally 2.3 that is available for both Linux and Windows. I saw the screenshots and I thought, man, this really, really looks cool. And I'm a big fan of Need for Speed. It didn't work in Linux. I thought for sure it would work in Windows when I booted into that. But then I realized, Toss, you dum-dum, your PC is outdated. It didn't have enough resources, enough firepower to run a graphics-intensive game. However, that being said, from what I've been seeing all over the news, apparently, Spatry, vendors like AMD and NVIDIA, I think Linus Torvalds can no longer give the finger to those companies, if you know what I mean.
Love finger! Oh, I'm sorry.
Exactly. A couple years ago, Linus did a talk, and apparently NVIDIA was not friendly to Linux, and he gave him the universal love finger, and you guys can figure that out. But that's changing. I just saw something. AMD is thinking about porting its Mantle graphics code or drivers over to Linux. The Mantle, I believe, is something comparable to Microsoft's DirectX, which I think if that happens, I think that is terrific. But none of this is going to happen for sure until more and more developers jump on. Companies like NVIDIA and AMD jump on board, full-time at least. And I believe, Spatry, next year, the Steam Machine is scheduled to be released. Of course, lots of gaming there. Now I know Spatry plays lots of gaming. Spatry, you have a caffeine-cooled machine. Is this true?
Actually, I'm running everything on a laptop. And I have to say, based on all the games that I've been playing, and I've been playing a lot of games, so kids expect some gaming videos coming up soon, because I took a little bit of a short summer break, because I have an extensive Steam library. I have a lot of games and I never have time to play them. And I says, you know what? I'm now going to start taking some time, and I'm going to start enjoying some of these games and really, take advantage of all these really good titles I've been missing out on. So, so that's what I've been doing quite a bit of, and my latest one that I've been playing is Star Conflict. And the thing that really gets me is that the Linux system is very capable of playing high-end AAA titles. And I've played Left 4 Dead, 2, which just plays amazingly well. JV was here earlier, and he popped out. I think he's having an internet connectivity issue presently, but he coordinates our gaming nights here, and we had a night we all played Alien Arena together. Linux is a very capable system, but I don't like the favoritism that many games are putting on NVIDIA. And I'll give you an example, and this is something I want to pass the mic over to Edge for this one, because The Witcher 2 was released. And rather than being a full port over to Linux, what they did was they used a wrapper, and I think it was called Ion or something like that. And basically what it is it's a DirectX wrapper that allows a game to be played in a Linux system, but only if it has an NVIDIA card. So this ostracizes anybody who's running an Intel graphics card, even one of the newer models that's capable of gaming, or ATI cards. And so I'm kind of upset about that. And also, if you're not running a Debian or an Ubuntu-based system, not all the games are going to run correctly. Let's pass the mic over to Edge and get his view on that.
Yeah, in terms of The Witcher 2, there's been my machine, I built it 3 or 4 years ago. But in terms of Linux games, there's been very little games that I couldn't just go, okay, yeah, set this on Ultra, everything's going to be okay. And due to how they did the optimization in The Witcher 2, this was not the case. I set it to that, and I got the initial video, and I was like, wow. And then I got into the game, and I was like, hey, it looks nice. Then I went to move, and I was getting about 4 frames per second. Whereas had they actually ported this over to OpenGL and optimized it for Linux, I probably would have been able to get away with that.
And that's the thing, because, I remember when Steam was initially porting some games over, this was prior to even announcing the SteamOS release, that they were able to get faster refresh rates on a Linux machine than they could on the Windows machines, and quite a substantial leap ahead. And so to see a title like this come to the SteamOS Linux arena, and you're not getting a good frame rate or good performance with the game, that's kind of a downer.
Yeah, it really is a downer. It's I haven't tried it on the lower settings or anything yet, because it froze and then it was being troublesome with launching again, and I just didn't want to fiddle with it at that point. But yeah, there's a lot of games that run well on any Linux distribution, but there are those games where specific things may come in an Ubuntu or a Debian OS that do not come in, say, an Arch OS or a Red Hat OS. So we have kind of this cross-platform issue happening. And in terms of the developers, all I would like in terms of that is some transparency. Say what stuff is needed in the description of the game. So if we're running a different system, we know we have to have this, this, and this installed, and we don't have to reverse engineer what packages need to be installed on our system. Please, devs, do this.
And what he's talking about by reverse engineering is, okay, so you download a game through Steam. Okay, and then you find that, you go and click the launcher on your menu and nothing happens. So what you end up having to do is you have to find out where that binary is and try and run that from a terminal, and then reading through the errors that the terminal is reporting. Okay, well, the game's not launching because you don't have this library installed or that library installed, or you're getting some kind of an error, and then you have to go through a Google search to find out what that binary is in the first place, or what the package is that you need, like a libjpeg file or something like that the game requires that you don't have installed on the system, because some distributions aren't going to have those pre-installed on there. Am I correct in that assessment, Edge?
Yeah, all distributions come with different binary sets installed. Some of them are made to be easy and will almost, in all cases, contain everything that you need to do anything. Whereas others, it's more tailored to your needs, and installing Steam alone will work, but it won't install all those things that are assumed to be installed on an Ubuntu system.
And what makes these work very well on a Debian or an Ubuntu system is the fact, well, number one, SteamOS, I think, is based on Debian Stable, where Ubuntu has uses their base, a frozen base taken off of their testing branch, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's the way it is that they're going with it. So that's why, these packages are available in the Debian systems, where if you're using a Fedora, a Gentoo, or an Arch-based system, you're going to have to do a little bit more digging around to get those applications and games working.
I wanted to ask Matthew. Matthew, you have a new Chromebook, which is, of course, is Chrome OS, a form of Linux. Can you play games on that thing?
Only games that run in the browser, mostly Flash games and things like that. So pretty much anything that'll run in the cloud in the browser. So it's not really platform specific.
I have some input to put on this because I've done some development on the Chromebook in the Crouton area. And when you install a Crouton distribution in dev mode, you then do have access to the majority of the things that the normal distribution would use. I've played Steam games on a Chromebook just fine. They've been indie games. They haven't been any high-powered games or anything like that. But I can tell you, I was raking in 60, 70 frames per second in Portal on an Acer C7 Chromebook. So they're capable. They'll get hot, but they're capable.
Yeah, but that's not something that you can do in its stock configuration. You do have to put it in development mode and do some fiddling with it to make that possible.
Oh yeah, most certainly you do have to do some fiddling with it to make that possible. I was just pointing out that it is possible to do those things on a Chromebook because there's a lot of people who look at it, don't understand the possibilities, and go, this thing is pointless. Where if you are at all technically inclined and you activate the things that I've said, you then open up your Chromebook to be almost a Linux box.
And that's probably a discussion best saved for another podcast, because I know I know a lot of manufacturers out there are locking down the devices. They're dumbing them down to prevent you from, really customizing the machines to get them to do what you want with them, that sort of thing. So that's something we can probably save up for another time. But yeah, that is an aggravation that gamers would potentially face. And obviously a gamer isn't going to be looking at a Chromebook for, getting their game on. Rather, they're going to get the Chromebook to, as their school computer or their travel computer or something like that.
Well, we've talked about some of the technicalities of some of the problems with Linux games and games being ported over to the Linux platform. But, as a dual booter, what's it going to take for Linux really to grow? And I think I mentioned this briefly, but it's going to take a combination, probably spatry, of a lot of things. The developers, vendors such as AMD and NVIDIA, the manufacturers. You mentioned you might pick up a System 76, PC in the future. It's going to take something like, either something like System 76 game console or a Linux Mint game console, and I'm just speculating here, but something like that. When you buy it, it should say something guaranteed to play games only with this distribution on this machine, tested by us, has the NVIDIA graphics card, all the drivers, everything you need, guaranteed to run just as good as what you experienced on your Windows PC. And if something like that happens sometime in the future, maybe next year, you will see more and more consumers not saying Linux, nah, I tried that, it didn't work, or it sucked. Well, things are changing pretty fast in this type of business. And, I've had requests in the past to look and comment about Linux gaming, and I've been doing this is my 5th year. And to be honest, I hesitate because as far as Linux gaming, it just wasn't there. I've had issues with video drivers that Spatry's made fun of me in the past. Thank you. But
we're not going to get you started on ATI again, are we? Okay.
No. The stable versus horse stable, the good versus the garbage. And, I didn't create the channel just to say Linux gaming sucks, but try everything else. That's not me. So I just said, well, I don't do a lot of gaming on my PC. I use my Xbox 360, and I played it safe, and maybe that was a cop-out, but that's changing. The games are getting more and more choices out there. On the Steam store, I saw Civilization and Left 4 Dead. Now, some of these games are a couple years old, but these are signature games coming to the Linux platform. Putting aside the outdated hardware like what I have presently, putting that aside, there is no reason why next year or 2 years from now, a Linux PC cannot play a high-end game, say like Halo. Now, I don't think Halo's coming to Linux, but something like that should be able to play because, as Battery says, Linux is capable of doing it, assuming that all the major players are on board.
Well, consider what we've already seen already, all right? 2 years ago, Steam released the Steam client, not even 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. Okay, if we consider what we've seen, the growth in the number of games, I think last year we had like 300 games, and what are we at now, Edge?
About 548. That includes DLCs.
Yeah, and so there's almost 550 games that they have now, and then of course that brings another mention. A lot of these games are indie games, Greenlight, and that sort of thing. And Edge had a beef about that. I'll pass the mic over to you for that one.
Yeah, my main beef about the Greenlight stuff is just the lack of transparency. There's a lot of developers that want to develop for Linux, but they know the money is where Windows is, so they're going to develop that first, and then they're going to develop their Linux side. Now, there's no issue at all in regards to this strategy. That's not the issue. The issue is that oftentimes the lack of Linux support, or we're going to support Linux in the future, has been buried in news posts. You look on their forums and you find no information. You see that little tuck symbol and you just have to assume I can buy this game and it'll work. That's what I assume, but when I buy it, it doesn't work. And then I go searching, where did it say that this didn't work? And usually it's back on the first page of the news of like a 10-page news thing, so I would have to read through every little piece of news that company ever had on that game to be able to find out. I would like these developers to put on their front page, these games will be added for Linux later. I would probably still pay them and buy the games just because they're going to be on Linux and the developer is supporting Linux. But I don't like the shady tactics that seem to be happening.
So, I think this also has to do with Steam as well. They need to mark these games. Take that penguin off until it's actually available for the Linux platform or for the Mac, or remove that Apple logo, from those game titles, so that people aren't lulled into purchasing these games only to find out that they can only play them on a Windows partition. That's kind of ridiculous.
And it's a direct matter of Steam has to buck up, make some rules for the developers that say, hey, this isn't acceptable. And Steam has to do this. It's because of the Steam box that Steam has to do this. When you look at Steam, after the announcement of the Steam box, what is the primary OS on Steam? I personally see it as Linux, because that's what the Steam box is. Steam is now a Linux platform. Yes, it is a PC gaming platform that deals with all around, but considering the fact that the Steam box is going Linux, well, those games, Steam should have some sort of incentive in there to have those developers develop for their platform first. It makes sense, but it's stupid that they're not doing it.
And this goes right along with what Toss today brought up earlier. What does Steam have to do to really sell their Steam box? And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to release a AAA title for Steam OS and Linux first, and then later on roll it out to the Windows community. That would be the game changer. They're not going to sell any Steam boxes unless they give out a AAA title to go with that Steam box that's only available on the Steam box, which will, yes, eventually get ported over to the Windows platforms and the other platforms. I know there's a big title that everybody's been waiting for in the Half-Life series. That would be a game changer if they were to release that for SteamOS first, and then make everybody wait a while to get their Windows or their Mac versions. And I think that is what's going to drive the sales, because people are going to be in demand for these. And this is going to cause people, obviously, that don't want to go out and buy a Steam box. At least it'll get them to install a Linux distro onto their computers so that they can run the Steam client from there. And it's really funny because they even had video tutorials on YouTube. People were upset because they couldn't get the Penguin, the Penguin Award for their Team Fortress game. And so what they ended up doing was putting up tutorials so that Windows users could get the Penguin by installing Steam and VirtualBox or some other weird. They had these weird methods. It was really funny to watch these little things showing people how they could jump through a few hoops just to get the Linux Penguin.
There has to be, Spatchy, when a newbie coming over to Linux or someone buying, Windows on Steam, but more Linux, there has to be some clear, concise description of the game. For example, let's say a signature game comes to Linux next year, similar to Halo. I'll just call it Schmalo. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. Yeah, I figured you would like it.
NSHalo.
NSHalo, right? Yes. There has to be a clear, concise description, such as, here's the new, Linux Schmalo game. Guaranteed to work, tested, and guaranteed to work in Linux Mint 19 with an NVIDIA graphics card XXXYYYZZ only. If you don't have this, your mileage may vary. If you post something like that and just be upfront with the person buying it, that way they'll know, hey, if you have these specs, this machine, it'll work. It's been tested. If you don't, it may or may not work. If you just put the games out there and just say, hey, buy this, it has a 5-star rating and that's it, that's not good enough. Now, you and I can deal with it. But for a new Linux user coming from Windows, oh, this was recommended by Toss and Spatula. Let me try what do you play, Star Conflict? Hey, well, it doesn't work on my machine because I use whatever OpenSUSE. I don't use the Spatchy's Manjaro. It didn't work. That's too much confusion for the new user. There has to be some kind of standardization, if that's even possible in Linux. I think it's possible in gaming in Linux, maybe not in Linux in general. But, when this Steam machine comes out next year, if there isn't some kind of quality standard, it's going to flop, and that's the end of gaming in Linux. I don't think that'll happen. As long as AMD and NVIDIA come on board and have specific tested drivers for Linux, even if it's just only for specific distributions. Let's say their drivers guaranteed to work only in Linux Mint and Ubuntu. I'm just saying, well, that's a start. That's a start, and maybe in the beginning that's all you need. But unless you have that quality standardization, it's not going to work.
I just got an idea from what you were saying, Toss, and it was in line with where the system requirements are for the Linux system. There could be a check OS option where there's a listing of all the different Linux distributions that have been tested. If they don't work, there's a listing of what needs to be done on those distributions to get them to work. So there's a database portion to the games for the Linux people so they can get their particular distributions working with troubleshooting steps. And then the developers can take those troubleshooting steps, go, okay, what do we need to patch to get it to actually work? And that would be a way to get the games working in a more cross-distro manner.
Well, that's part of being clear and concise, so I would have to agree.
And along the vein you were talking about where, the games are tested thoroughly amongst several different distributions, Steam's doing that already by providing early access games at a ridiculously low price. So, they have people that are across multiple platforms that are downloading and testing these games. And, they're not final released yet. They're early access. So they, and they also give you some perks for purchasing the early access game in that, if it's a free to play game and you put money into it, you'll get extra perks that other players wouldn't get. And this gives the community the chance to test these games on different platforms. And of course, Star Conflict is one of them. I actually purchased an Elite ship pack, which grants me access to more ships. And it's also allowed me to experiment with a different game mode that they have available, which is like a free-form model where you can fly around and pick up different missions and that sort of thing, which is pretty neat. I like it. It still needs work, but the game hasn't crashed. So far, it's been quite stable for me. So I think the early access idea is working really well, so that, they can ensure that these games, when the final releases do come out, that these will work for people and that sort of thing. So I think they have a good idea there. It just needs to be worked on a little bit more.
Okay. Spatry, it's getting close to wrapping this up. JV, you did jump back in the channel. If you can hear us, if you wanted to say something, of course, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, now JV coordinates our game night here at cupoflinux.com. We've already had one game night. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing here and that sort of thing?
We just recently set up the game nights and already had one game night at cupoflinux.com. And we plan to monthly do this and just play and screw around a little and just have a bit fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's a great chance to get even with Spatry or whatever, because we had Alien Arena the first night, and it was a lot of fun. It got to a point though where I just went into spectator mode and watched everybody, and it looked like a war, and the maps were changing every 10 minutes, so everybody had an opportunity to play, and some of the maps were quite beautiful. And then the night after, we had a bonus game night where we had a handful of people come in to play Star Conflict with me, and you guys killed me. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. So I highly recommend you come to cupoflinux.com and check out our game night thread. You must be a member of the forums, because we do have when we do have these servers set up, we do have them password locked out so that only members of the community can come in and play. This way we can ensure a fun experience for everyone. So I recommend you check us out at cupoflinux.com for that.
Hey,
we're going to have more coming in. And the man of the hour has finally arrived. And
unmute him. There we go.
Yeah, IG, how you doing? Welcome.
Hey there. Sorry for my delayed appearance.
We're glad you're here. We were just going to wrap this up, but we will stick around for our Australian friend, won't we, Spatry?
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Okay. Let's bring you up to speed. We were talking about the possible future of Linux maybe in gaming. You and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago in the last discussion that we had, and we're just expanding about this, talking about the technicalities of what needs to be involved, such as all the vendors getting involved and developers and making this work. Excuse me. I personally believe that the future in Linux, in terms of the Linux desktop for the masses and not government servers, but for the mom and pop purchaser of a Linux machine, if they can have their games for themselves and for their kids and have a wide variety of games both for kids and adults, I think that the Linux platform can explode, as it were. In the past, I've kind of hesitated commenting and doing reviews and games because it wasn't there, and I kind of hesitated, but now things are changing. But you do play some games on your PC. I know you played. Was it last month you played Call of Duty? Was that on your PC?
That was on my PC, yes.
Okay, and that was what, Windows 7?
No, Windows 8.
Okay, so it looked pretty good. So if you can maybe compare and contrast the quality of today, say with a game like that of what you played in Linux.
Well, I think it really depends on the support that the game developers have for the particular graphics stack that's on a particular Linux machine with its drivers and such. So I think in order to see that kind of quality come to a Linux machine, it's going to depend on the game developers getting behind the Linux platform, which is already happening with SteamOS and all that sort of thing. But then you've also got the all of the drivers, and I think it's when manufacturers really get on board to bring their Linux drivers up to speed. NVIDIA and AMD bringing their graphics drivers up to speed with what is available on Windows. That's when we're really going to start to see the same quality coming over to the Linux desktop. Once we get that consistency going, then we'll be fine. It won't really matter whether you're running Windows or Linux or Mac. If the graphics manufacturers can bring their drivers up to speed with what's available on Windows, and then the game developers can jump in and support that, then I think that's when we'll start seeing AAA titles being running just as smoothly on Linux as they are on Windows at the moment. And I mean, it's good to see games like Civ 5 jumping on board, the very popular game that's all of a sudden supported 100% working in Linux.
What Linux games do you play now?
At the moment, I generally stick to the classics, Super Tux Kart and a couple of the other, just pretty typical open source titles. I haven't really jumped on the Steam thing too much, just because, oh gosh, I don't really have the time. But I've played around with a couple of them, but not really for any period of time.
Now,
Okay, yeah.
I have a question. Doesn't Tux Kart have a multiplayer component?
Yes, it does.
We need to get everybody together one night in the game room, because we have a game night room here. We need to get everybody together one night for Super Tux Kart night and race it out. I think that would be a blast.
I think that would be really fun.
Indeed.
And
Yeah.
just to add in, the Cup of Linux community does at very least have a temporary VPS for games. So we have a box dedicated to such.
Yeah,
Okay.
and JV has been managing that for us, so maybe that's a possibility. Why don't we think about that maybe this weekend, getting everybody together for some racing in Tux Kart? I think that would be a lot of fun.
IG, what's the
Indeed.
state of gaming there in Australia? Is it big on the console, on the PC, or maybe like a little bit of both?
Definitely a bit of both. It really depends what your poison is as far as gaming is concerned. I mean, definitely the strategy games and the more complicated games, definitely you see more of them on the PC than you do on the console, but consoles are just as big here. They are a little bit more expensive, especially the newest generation ones, the PS4 and the Xbox One. They're a bit more expensive than they are in the States, but no, they're still just as big here as they are anywhere else, I think.
Okay. We had talked, and Ed, you can chime in on this and fill in, for IG, being something about clear and concise for beginners coming over to Linux. Edge, can you, repeat what you said?
Yeah, it's just a matter of transparency from the developers to us in Linux, mainly on the early access stuff, because a lot of times there's you see that Tux logo, but buried in the news it says it is we're working on that later, and so you buy the game thinking it's going to work and it's not, and I think there needs to be more transparency there. To go into a segue here, I think the big failing right at this very moment is controller support. You've got the Xbox 360 controller, which has decent drivers for Linux and works well, but then you're relying on Microsoft for your gamepad. You've got the PS3 controller. If you had a PS3, results vary. They don't work very well. So really where we're lacking right now is hardware on the gamepad support. And I'm really waiting for the SteamOS controller to come out for that.
Now, I have an older Logitech gamepad. It's got like two little joysticks on it, and it's I don't know. I bought it maybe 2 years ago, and this thing works magnificent on my computer, and it works out of the box. Just plug it in, and it's good to go. Now I do have to calibrate them for every individual game that I'm playing. Not every time. But we do have game controllers that do work. So, yeah.
a lot of those ones are, like you said, the old ones. You look at the new ones and the amount of game controllers that exist out there these days, you're looking at pretty much the Xbox controller or the 360 controller or the PS3 controller. The ones that are out right now aren't all that good in terms of Linux support. That's why I'm really waiting on the Steam controller.
All right, I follow you. Yeah, and that does look quite promising. But I understand if my information is correct from my sources that there's a delay on releasing those.
Let me ask a question here to the panel. And Matthew, first, do you play games on your Windows machine?
Occasionally, yeah.
Okay. If there was, and now, of course, Battery and I joked about this, but let's say there was a Linux comparable game to Halo, we'll just call it Shmalo, okay? And it came to Linux, and it played just as fine, it was just as good. Would you pay the $60 to buy that game to play it on Linux? Edge, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm gonna say myself no, but that's because I'm not into those types of games. However, I am going to make an example. Metro Last Light is one of the most popular games on Linux, and it is essentially what you described.
Now,
Okay.
something to keep in mind, though, if you purchased a game title on Steam, so let's say you purchased, and I'm trying to think of a good example here, but let's say you purchased a game that was not released for Linux initially, but it's in your game library. Once it does become available for the Linux platform, you will be able to download the game because you purchased a license for that game title. So you would be able to get that game on Steam without having to pay extra for the Linux version.
Okay.
And I have the perfect example for you. The perfect example for you is a game that you have actually played, Spatry. I purchased the X3 series before it came to Linux, and then it came to Linux.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the X3 series is probably the coolest 3D space combat simulator. Too bad it doesn't have a multiplayer component. Otherwise, I would have checked to see if anybody wanted to play that one with me.
Okay, let's see. IG, would you pay $60 for a signature Linux game?
I think if it was to the same kind of quality, and again, if it was something, Shmalo, as it seems to be called, yeah, I probably would. I've played, first-person shooters are probably what I've played more than any other sort of game, and I think if they managed to pull off a game that was, up to the same kind of quality, or even indeed the actual Halo franchise, which of course is never going to happen, but if they did, then yeah, I probably would still pay the $60 to play it.
Fair enough, and I must say, IG, you did a terrific job riding that snowmobile on Call of Duty, by the way.
Oh yeah, I ran that thing right into the side of that tunnel like a boss.
Yeah, I saw that. JV, what about you?
Well, I had to really into that game for me to pay like $60 on it. But if it was really good, yeah, definitely.
Fair enough. Matthew, what about you?
Well, if you're saying that there's a game on a Windows platform, Halo, and you're talking about a Linux equivalent that's just as good at this very moment in time, I would say no. And the reason for that is the gaming on Windows scene, it's very mature. It's been around forever. And if I'm going to invest my money into it at this point in time, I would stay on that platform because I can depend on it. I know it's going to work every single time. As Linux matures with the gaming scene, then maybe my opinion on that will change. But until it does, I really don't think so. And playing a little devil's advocate here, I think that's probably the biggest issue that a lot of people have with gaming on Linux, because gamers, as it stands now, I think that most of them are happy with the systems that they currently have. The gamers are happy with their Xbox, they're happy with their PlayStation, they're happy with their Windows machine. And unless there's something on Linux to offer them that is greater and better than what they have in their existing platforms, I really don't see this becoming a huge thing. And I don't see a lot of people wanting to invest money into it if they already have one of these other systems. Hopefully that'll change in the future, but that's kind of the way I see it where I'm sitting right now.
Okay, what if there was a signature game, and I mentioned Halo, but let's say there was a signature game for Linux that was bug-free, and I mean totally bug-free, and say maybe $30. Would that maybe entice you to try it?
Well, first things first, what I would do is I do the research. Number one, because I have quite an eclectic. I can't even talk today. Yeah, I like my space combat sims, and there are a lot of them out there. Okay, and before I'll even consider purchasing a game, I want to see a video review of it. I want to see the gameplay in action. I want to see what other people have got to say about this title. Is this title, is this a 5-star title, or is this something that the gaming worlds across the board are giving 2 stars? Probably not even going to buy it. But if it's got 4 or 5 stars, and it's got good reviews across the board, of course I'm going to shell out the money for it.
All right, Spatchy,
and it doesn't matter whether it's $30 or $60. If it's something that the gamer wants, and it's got good reviews across the board, people are going to spend the money. And in response to what was being said in the chat room at cupoflinux.com, there are a number of games that are not going to be made for Linux, especially if Microsoft owns them. Okay, but the thing is, I've got Microsoft games running on my Linux machine using Wine. I was able to get those working. I've got Microsoft Freelancer working, and that's one of my favorite space combat simulations as an example. So, there are ways of getting those games working, even though Wine doesn't play everything out there today. As newer versions of Wine keep coming out, we'll eventually seeing those titles coming to us. So, but it is a hit or miss kind of thing as well.
All right. Edge wanted to say something that I guess we can have IG have the last word. But Edge, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, in terms of your example, it would have been a no, and as I said, because I don't play those types of games. However, there is a relevant example right now on Steam. It is called Wastelands 2. It is an RPG game, which fits into the style of the games that I like to play. It is $60. It's currently early access, and I'm thinking of buying it. So, in terms of will the developers get their money from me if they're the right type of games? Yes.
All right,
I think also a relevant example, as far as Linux users paying for games that they value, I think if you look at the Humble Indie Bundle, Linux users are consistently paying more for their game. It is a pay what you feel kind of thing, but Linux users are consistently paying more for that bundle than the Windows or Mac users. And I mean, I think that's a very good indicator to the game developer community that if they did, bring games to the Linux platform, AAA titles, and that Linux users would be willing to shell out, cash to support the developers and to pay for these games, even if they are up to $60. But I mean, I think, the Humble Indie Bundle's been around for a while, and I think it's a pretty interesting indication there that, consistently over the years that it's been around, Linux users have been paying, 20 to 30% more for their game bundle than on any other platform.
I just wanted to say here before, we wrap this up, that as a Windows Linux dual booter, the game doesn't have to look as spectacular or as good as Halo on the 360 or Halo. I guess Halo 1 was the only one for the PC, but it has to be bug free. I don't want more issues with, video drivers and it crashes and this, and I just want the freaking thing to work. Even if it so in other words, if I rate Halo a 10 and the Linux equivalent is an 8, that would be good enough for me as long as it was unique, it was a signature game, it's fun, and it's a bug-free, like Matthew was saying, can you trust it? But maybe not right now, but that can change in the future. But as a Windows person like myself, if it just works, I don't need a game rated a 10. At least an 8, but I don't need a 10. But that's strictly based on my opinion and my experience with, Linux versus Windows. But if it came to that, I would be perfectly satisfied. All right, Spatry, that's all I have to say if you want to take us out.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight here at cupoflinux.com. Edge226, our resident genius. Thank you for being with us. IG, we're so happy to see you tonight. We thought you weren't even going to show up at all, so thanks for joining us. JV, thanks for all you're doing here, coordinating our game nights at Cup of Linux. Matthew, thank you for popping in. Toss. As always, it's always a bunch of fun. Thank you, all of you who's listening to us live in the listening room, and thanks to everybody who is participating at cupoflinux.com in our chat room. You can pop in anytime. We always have a bunch of fun activities going on here. So, yeah, and I do think we need to get together, everybody, this weekend for some Tux Kart. I think that would be a good idea.
I have it. Splat Spatry. There we go.
Yes, and so all you'll have to do is just pop in, and we'll figure out a time. So visit us at cupoflinux.com and check out the game night discussion. I'll even put up a link in the announcement section so that people can pop in, and then and then there's a game night room right here on Mumble. So just join us in the game night room, and we'll tell you which servers to connect to and that sort of thing, and we'll all get together and race it out with Spatry. Just be careful. I'm very mean with that plunger I'll be throwing at all you guys.
Okay, sounds like
that is a cute game, though. You throw plungers and cupcakes at other people and knock them off the road, and it is a pretty basic game, but it's fun.
Sounds morbid, but hey, I'm all in.
All right, well, yeah. So let's everybody get on Cup of Linux, and we'll do that.
All right, and as always, we will catch all of you sometime in the future. Now, Spatry, say it, ciao, say it.
Do I have to?
Fine, goodbye.